So, when It's My Head started, it was originally with Bob Goffer, the guitarist from London. Well, there's a lot of stories to tell there. But basically, Bob left, and I was living in Scandinavia. I was living in Denmark, and I had to go to Göteborg in Sweden, Gothenburg in English. So I took, I think it was probably a night train from Copenhagen. And this is how I met Per Telleras. Now, Per Telleras tells the story like I just sat next to him. The fact is, there was only one seat available on the train, and that was next to Per. And he was looking like this very rough kind of punk guy. So nobody wanted to sit there, you know. But I sat next to him, and actually we hit it off very quickly, you know. He was a photographer, I was a musician. And when we got into Sweden, because you've got to remember this is like 1985 or 6, as we got into Sweden, the Swedish border control came on, and the customs, and I just remember they started to take our seats apart. Nobody else did, just me and him. And this woman came with a rubber glove on, and I remember Per and I looked at each other like, you've got to be fucking joking. They didn't get to that stage because they didn't find anything, but they were looking. So that kind of, yeah, that kind of made like some kind of connection as well, you know. We got all this shit with the fucking authorities. So that was how I met Per Telleras. Anyway, many months later, I was so impressed with his work, I said, do you want to join my band? It's My Head. So for about a year, it was just me and Per Telleras, and we were doing quite well in Scandinavia. We played some big festivals. We played the Atonal Festival in Berlin. That was a big one, to well over 1,000 people. But there was this one occasion in Oslo, I found this Esso oil barrel. I found it in a container. It was a galvanized barrel, and the sound was absolutely awesome. So I took this barrel and I carried it all the way back to Per's apartment. I said, man, we've got to keep this barrel. We're going to use this on the gigs. So in those days, we used to travel very often, like on the boat. In those days, you didn't have to buy a bed or anything. You used to sleep in the restaurant or whatever, you know. And everybody used to get drunk. All the Norwegians would be smashed going to Denmark and on the way back. So anyway, we had this oil barrel and we had this big concert in Aarhus in a place called Huset. I said, Per, we've got to take this barrel now. This is going to be very important to the gig. So we took it down to the harbour, and Per, talking with the crew guys, and he stored the barrel for us. So the next morning with hangovers, we carried this fucking oil barrel half a kilometre to the railway station, and we actually got on the train. I remember the Danish ticket control guy was like, "Bye there, man." Yeah. We're like, yeah, it's okay. So we actually got it to Aarhus. We did the gig, which was great. We had a big party with all our friends in Aarhus. And it was the next day or the day after, we had to go back to Oslo. So we're at Aarhus railway station at like 9 o'clock in the morning with this Esso oil barrel. And there was a bunch of officials from the railroad walking on the platform. And they saw us with this oil barrel. And it's like, "Nay, you can't take this on." And we had this big confrontation that went on for like 15 minutes, and we actually ended up with the oil barrel back on the train. Then we get to the boat, go back to Oslo, and we have this fucking oil barrel. Again, we managed to get on the boat. Finally, we get to Oslo, we have to go to the pass control and all the other controls, and we've got this fucking oil barrel, and everyone's just like, what the fuck are you taking this oil barrel for? So we get into Oslo Central, and Per looked at me and he said in Norwegian, "I've had enough. I've fucking had enough of carrying this barrel." They just left it on the street. So that was one small incident of the life of It's My Head, you know. We just, after all that trouble to get this barrel to Denmark and back, it ended up just being left on the street where we found it in Oslo.